Welcome to the Advancing Entrepreneur. This show is all about surrounding yourself for success. Hear stories of building traction, gaining acceleration, and creating results from successful entrepreneurs who have surrounded themselves with other successful entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Annette Nightingale James.
Hello, Advancing Entrepreneurs. Annette Nightingale James back with you for another episode of the Advancing Entrepreneur, where we help you get traction, acceleration, and results. This morning, we are joined by Joel. Good morning, Joel.
Good morning.
Good morning. And I should say Joel Runyon. Joel Runyon is on a mission, the 777 Project, to run 7 ultramarathons across 7 continents to raise money for 7 schools. Joel, tell us a little bit more about yourself and the project that you're working on.
So I started doing the 777 Project through my site Impossible, which I started a little over 4 years ago. And I basically take on different challenges or missions that would otherwise seem impossible. Then I go out and do them and then kind of share with my audience how I go about and do that. And so a few years back, I ran my first ultramarathon and raised enough money to build a school. We raised about $26,000. And the mission of Impossible is always to kind of push your limits and do something more, not stay happy with the status quo. And so a year and a half, 2 years later, decided to do something again, and we wanted to push our limits, do something in a bigger, better way, and we decided to go ahead and do 7 ultramarathons on 7 continents and build 7 schools.
Joel, what inspires you to keep pushing through every day? Obviously, you have a really interesting story and a really interesting concept that you're working through, but when you kind of hit those walls and you want to quit, what drives and motivates and moves you forward?
I'm a known proponent of not relying on motivation. I don't think motivation is a great way to continue doing hard stuff. It's really good for easy, simple, small tasks that you can knock out in about 5 or 10 minutes before the motivation fades away. But if you're going to do a long, in-depth project, you need more than motivation. You need discipline. And so the number one thing that I think is helpful in achieving long, big, impossible goals is to one, decide you're going to do it, and then 2, realize what you're going to have to give up in order to accomplish it. Because if you think you're going to be able to just be motivated and all of a sudden you're going to be able to get it done and you're not going to have to give up anything else, that's not really true. Because you know, no matter what you want to do, you're going to have to give something up, whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's your whatever it is, there's always a trade-off. So you by stating up front what you're going to do and what you're willing to give up in order to accomplish it, it makes it a lot easier to actually go out and do it.
So just kind of like hunkering down, making that decision and committing.
Well, it's not even hunkering down as much as just deciding beforehand, like, I say I'm going to do this and I will do this, and the only thing that will not let me do it is if I die. That is like, one, committing to it, and then literally deciding and saying out loud what you're willing to give up for. Because a lot of people talk about the things they want and all the things they want to do and all these great things that seem really happy and easy and wonderful, but then they never actually think about what it takes in order to achieve those. And everything, I think everything can be achieved. You just always have to look at the trade-off costs on what it would cost to get that. So, everything has a, if you go into a store, everything has a purchase price on it. You can't just walk by stuff and be like, oh, I really wish I could have that. And never, like, at some point, you're going to have to pony up $20 and purchase it. Same thing with life. There's all these different things you can do. At some point, you're going to have to either decide that you actually want it instead of just talking about it. If you want it, then you can work hard and go pay the price and get it. Or you can just keep hoping and wishing and dreaming that it'll come true someday.
Well, very good. I love that. I think that that's really kind of maybe an under talked about part of entrepreneurship too, is just, like you said, just make the decision. It's not all about ponies and roses, right? All the time. You're not always going to feel good about the sacrifices that you have to give up. So share with our audience a little bit, Joel, because I'm really fascinated by your concept of the impossible projects and stuff. What kind of got you started on that journey?
I started the site about 4 years ago. I couldn't get a job from college. Basically graduated in 2009. and tried to get a job for about 9 months, and no one would hire me. I tried at like the big consulting firms. I tried at smaller businesses in my area. I started lowering my prospects to Starbucks and Target and like in the retail section, and I couldn't even get a call back from Starbucks. And so I basically was in a low place where I was sitting around, living in my parents' basement, having all these things that I wished I could do, but not doing anything about it. I was just waiting for them to come along and happen to me, and they weren't. And so I had a bunch of friends who were doing crazy things. Like one was traveling around the world. He's going to every single continent or every single country. I had some other friends who had quit their job and moved to Thailand. So all these people doing all these different things. And I was like, man, I can't travel to every country. I can't even quit my job because I don't even have a job. I can't do anything, and everything really did seem impossible. So what I started making a list of all these things I wanted to do, and I called it my impossible list, which is up on my site. And I started basically just looking at the different things that I wanted to do, and I looked at some of them and said, I can't do all the traveling. I can't start my own business because I don't know anything, but one of the things on there was a triathlon. And I was like, well, there's nothing really preventing me from getting up and running around the block and then getting on my bike and riding around the block and training for this triathlon. And at this point, I had no idea what a triathlon was. I didn't even know, the basics of it. I didn't know what 3 sports were in it. But I decided I was going to do it. And I started training for it and went ahead and ended up doing it. And when I finally ended up doing it, I realized that I had put up, I spent so much time talking about why this was going to be such a hard thing for me to do. And I went ahead and did it. And I realized, okay, well, that wasn't impossible. I built this up to be this thing that was impossible for me. And it wasn't. And so I started thinking about, like, what are the other things out there that aren't impossible that maybe just because I'm thinking about, just because I've thought that they, were tough or whatever, and I've built up these barriers for myself, are they actually possible or not? And so I built a list, and I just decided to go after them one by one, and every single time, I crossed something off. Instead of just crossing it off and being done with it, I started asking myself, what's next? And so it went from basically me never running a 5K before to me running ultra marathons, doing half Ironmans, stuff like that. So along the way, I realized that, it's really cool to write about yourself and all the things you want to do, but unless you help people, you can't really, it's hard to sustain traction on a blog if you're not helping people, if you're just talking about yourself. Nobody's really that interesting. So I decided to start like breaking down how I'm going about my process in order to help other people do that too. So right now it's kind of evolved to a point where I go out and break down a lot of different challenges, whether they're physical or mental, and then kind of reverse engineer it and share with my audience on how I actually go about doing that so they can do it too.
Yeah, I love that. So as you were transitioning it from just, being, a blogging, maybe an online journal of sorts into being a business, was there a time when you started reaching out and surrounding yourself with other entrepreneurs who were doing things similar to you? Did you start attending live events or mastermind groups or anything like that?
No. So my big thing was I didn't quit my job. So I was trying to get a job when I was broke. I was living in my parents' basement. I was trying to get a job when I started my stuff because nobody would hire me. And I ended up getting a job with a guy in Indianapolis who took a chance on me. And basically what I did for the first 2 years was surround myself as basically I kind of positioned myself as their apprentice, and basically got in a couple different marketing firms and started working really closely with the CEO on the business end and working with client businesses and stuff like that. So a lot of people, I imagine, in your audience are kind of in the corporate scene and they're trying to get out or trying to transition from employee to getting to entrepreneur. And I was really trying to transition to, I was sitting in my parents' basement. I want to get out of my parents' basement. So the first thing I did was surround myself with someone who was doing business, and basically is like, I don't know if this is exactly what I want to be doing, but I'm gonna it was a really low paying job to start, but I didn't even care because I was more interested in what I could learn. and the opportunity there. So I found somebody that could mentor me, that I could learn from, that was already doing the type of business I was interested in, and then I jumped into it and learned as much as I could. And then I had a job for 2 years while I was first starting the blog. That's what a lot of people think. They start a blog and they can run their own business, and that's cool if you can pull it off. But most people have a little bit of ramp up time. So I didn't quit my job until 2 years out, and that was basically at the point where I hated working so much that I would rather go back to living in my parents' basement than working for someone else. But especially starting out, I've positioned myself as an apprentice of other people who are smarter than me and doing stuff and had established businesses already. And then as I've continued to run my business, I find people who are running similar businesses to me, or that I can be around with, just from a social aspect, more than like conferences are good, but a lot of people go to conferences just to be at conferences. And there's a few conferences I'll go to, but I don't go to just, every single one every single weekend.
So very good. Yeah, no, that's true too. And I'm a little bit of a conference junkie myself, but you have to, have the actual results from it too. But I think I like your advice even better about, apprentice yourself to somebody who's doing what you're doing, or what you want to do rather, so that you can learn from them. I think there's something really valuable about that. A couple episodes ago, actually, we hit on that. Go ahead.
Well, the big thing is that a lot of people think they want to just jump into being an entrepreneur, and at some point you have to learn how to think like an entrepreneur, because there's a transition from thinking like an employee to thinking like an entrepreneur. And especially where I was, I didn't have anything of value to add to anyone. Like I couldn't get a job. People knew I couldn't get a job for like 9 months. Starbucks would hire me. So like at that point, my value add to a business was I can hustle, and that was it. And so basically I looked at like businesses where I could hustle, and by just being being willing to say, I'm gonna come in and do whatever you need to do and get it done. If it's not pretty, it doesn't matter. You can build yourself into a business and build yourself, whether you're looking at your career as being, you can be entrepreneurial without necessarily leaving your job. You can look at your current job and saying like, here's all the different ways, here's the different people surrounding me that, here's all the different problems they have, and here's the way I can solve it for them, and here's the way I can better position myself within the company. You don't even necessarily have to leave your job to be an entrepreneur, but a lot of people don't think that. They think that they got to like quit their job and start blogging immediately, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. And I think the biggest thing that I see with people is they quit their job and they want to start their blog immediately, or they want to start whatever, and it's like, man, focus on your job, get in as best positioned in your job as you can, and in the meantime, the 15 hours a week that you have on your off time, work on your side project, work on your business, and put in the hours there. And then when your business gets to the point where you can make that leap, that's when you make the leap, versus you just saying, I'm gonna make it happen. Because if you're not willing to put those, again, comes to the trade-off of what you're willing to give up. If you're not willing to give up those 15 hours extra while you're working, you're not going to be willing to give it when you're not working. So that's kind of my viewpoint on that.
I love that. I think that's a really understated point, right? Like everybody wants to talk about, oh, I quit my job and in 6 months I was doing this or that, but they don't talk about like the background that they spent, 2 years squirreling away every cent that they could, or that they had a background in the business that they were going to start and they already had their first 10 clients lined up or whatever. So I think that's really, just practical advice that a lot of entrepreneurs can take. So I love that you shared that. Can you tell us, was there with the people that you do surround yourself with, whether it was the mentors that you surrounded yourself with early on, or these other entrepreneurs that you purposely make part of your peer group, was there ever a time when you were having a conversation, or kind of there was a light bulb moment when you made a shift in your business and you're like, oh, this is it. This is even if it was a small thing that ended up, pivoting and being something big for you. Was there a light bulb moment that you got because you surrounded yourself with other people that could inspire and help you?
the big thing for me has been more just like realizing that it was probably about 2.5 years ago, realizing that all the work that I was doing for my employer, I could do for myself. At that point, I was working at a marketing agency, and I started a marketing consultancy, and still have it. But that's how I transitioned out of my job. Was initially, it wasn't all blog supported. It was I ran a marketing agency, and the aha moment, if you will, was when I realized that I tripled the ad spend on one of our client campaigns. They were ecstatic about the performance. We basically tripled the amount of income we were bringing in and a month to our company, and that was equivalent to a month and a half of whatever I generated for our company was equal to my year's salary. And I realized, I'm making them a lot of money. I probably could be doing that for myself. And so that was sort of when I was like, I think I could probably transition out at some point or whatever. And then I started working on getting clients lined up and putting stuff together on my own. But yeah.
So good. Again, being prepared for that leap, right? So I think that's obvious. Awesome. Okay, so Joel, tell us a little bit more about what you're up to now. Maybe you want to talk more about the 777 project or whatever projects you got going on that you want to share with our audience.
Okay, so I have I have 3 different businesses that I run. So I have a marketing consultancy where I take on sort of a boutique agency. I don't take on as many clients as I used to, but do online marketing, SEO, PPC for clients. I have my website called Impossible and the 777 project, which is going on. We're at 1 out of the 7 races so far. And the next one is coming up in Nepal. We're going to be running it on Mount Everest. So that's going to be pretty cool. And then I have another project or business that we're actually running. It's called the Ultimate Paleo Guide. And it's a paleo focused resource on helping people understand how to live healthy through living paleo. And then we have a bunch of different projects off that, apps, microsites, etc. So those are kind of like the 3 different projects that I've got going on. I don't know if you wanted to dive into 1 or 2 of them specifically.
I do have a couple things. Audience, if you go to iamadvancing.com and you hit up Joel in the search bar, your show notes page is going to pop up, Joel, and we're going to link to these different projects so that our audience can follow your Impossible blog and if they want to learn more about your marketing agency and your 777 project as well. But one thing I do want to ask you about, because I came up in some blog posts and stuff when I was getting ready for the interview, is that you are into the cold shower therapy, and I've been hearing so much about that lately. Would you share just a little bit about that with our audience? It's just a little personal fascination of mine, so I wanted to dig into that for a minute.
Yeah, do you know where you heard it from?
So I could probably find it, but off the top of my head it's not coming.
Yeah, so cold shower therapy is something I got from my buddy Nick a few years back. I don't think he called it cold shower therapy, but basically it's this idea that a lot of people say nice little things like do something every day that makes you uncomfortable, or that's probably the most popular one, or growth happens outside your comfort zone, and people like saying stuff like that, but nobody actually does it. And if you do it, if you challenge people to do it, most people get really scared and run away. And so cold shower therapy is a way to practice every single day actually being uncomfortable, actually purposely deciding to be uncomfortable. And so the concept is that every single day, it initially came because I do impossible extreme challenges. Like I think you can learn a lot of these things by running a marathon or running a triathlon, or deciding to pack your bags and move to another country. Like you'll learn a lot about yourself that way. But there's a lot of reasons why people can't do that. They're not fit enough. They don't have the money. They can't just quit their job. And so cold shower therapy is the most basic way to get outside your comfort zone in a practical, realistic standpoint that you can do today, tomorrow, and for the next 30 days. Because every single day, everybody takes a shower, hopefully. And everybody takes a shower and they make a choice. And most people don't even think about it because it's that simple. And all they do is just they turn the water to hot, and they get in and they take the shower because that's what normal people do. That's what's comfortable. That's the easy choice. They probably haven't even thought about the other options. but it is a choice, and that's what they need to realize. And so cold shower therapy is the practical, it's a challenge to take 30 days of cold showers. And the reason I called it cold shower therapy, not because there's a lot of people who talk about the health benefits of it, and I've talked about that before. It's more of a secondary thing to me because for me, the practical benefits of cold shower therapy, it's almost like a therapy session. It's like, because when you go into the shower and you're thinking about which way should I turn this knob, and if you turn it to cold, right before you turn it to cold, your mind starts going off. It starts freaking out. You're saying, this is going to be comfortable. This is going to be stupid. This is pointless. This isn't going to do anything for me. Who's Joel? I hate Joel. He sucks. This is the dumbest idea ever. And you have all these things pop up in your head, and you're either going to chicken out and turn it back to warm, or you're going to turn it to cold and keep it on cold. And it really and you have to realize, the thoughts in your head are just thoughts in your head. And once you do that for enough days in a row, you'll start to realize that anytime you go do anything that's somewhat uncomfortable, that puts you outside your comfort zone, that's maybe a little scary for you, those same thoughts pop back up in your head. This is uncomfortable. This is stupid. What's the point? Why am I doing this? Who really cares? And you have to realize that they're all just little thoughts that are going off in your head, and they're not real things. They're just things that are keeping you from trying something new or potentially getting better. And what you realize is when you get outside the shower 5 minutes later, it's cold. And it's cold, and it was tough or it was hard. But it wasn't nearly as hard as you thought it was going to be. And you're really only cold for 5 minutes. And the idea is if you can't do something uncomfortable in the shower where the only person affected is you, and the only negative results are that you're cold for 5 minutes. How are you ever going to do anything else, whether it's quit your job, start a business, move your family, whatever it is? How are you going to be able to do that if you can't take 5 minutes of cold shower? So a lot of people think, you take cold shower to feel, like super manly, and but it's really the opposite. It's really this base level thing that if you can't do a cold shower, how are you going to do any of these other things? Because it's really not that big a deal. And right before you get in the shower, most people are like, their minds light up with all these reasons why it's a big deal and this is stupid and this is the dumbest thing. But those are just, I think Pressfield calls it the resistance. It's just the ideas of the resistance popping up and saying, oh, don't do this thing that's going to make you better. So that's the idea of cold shower therapy.
Did you give a TED Talk on this?
Yeah, I did a TED Talk about 1.5 years ago about it.
I think that came up. So maybe we'll link to that too, so if they want to hear more. I think that's fantastic. I think I've heard about it more. I've heard some of the health benefit angles, which is fine, which I've actually had some experience clearing up my skin a little bit from alternating hot to cold. But I've also heard a lot about it recently about like it's a clarity thing and it like motivates you and all this kind of stuff, but I had not heard about it this way. So I'm really glad that you took the time because audience, there is no excuse, just like Joel said. If nothing else, commit to the next 30 days, cold shower therapy, just so that you can learn how to overcome those thoughts that pop up in your head when a new project is looming or a new idea comes up. Very cool. Well, Joe, I'm going to take you through a little bit of a speed round now called Playing Favorites, just so our audience can get to know you a little bit. Okay, so number one, what is your favorite charity?
Pencils of Promise. They're the ones I'm raising money for.
Awesome. That's where you're doing. I figured as much. Very cool. I got to see an interview with the founder that Nick Unsworth was doing. Really cool stuff. Just the whole story. Audience, if you're not familiar with Pencils of Promise, please go Google it. Actually, we'll link to it on Joel's show notes page on iamadvancing.com because it's an amazing story and it's really neat, the stuff that they're doing and how 100% of the money that you raise for the schools goes to build the schools. It's very cool. It's very cool. So what is your favorite quote, Joel?
There's one by, I believe it's Nelson Mandela. It says it's always impossible until it's done. And that's a pretty good representation of the site, I think.
Yeah, encompasses your challenges. Very good. What is your favorite discovery? Do you have an app or a resource that you use in your business?
Can I plug my own?
Please.
Well, I've got two. So one, we have a cold shower therapy app on iTunes. Yeah, so I gotta plug that. And then we have an app called Paleo.io, and for people who are looking, I don't think paleo is the end all be all of everything, but I think it's a really, really good starting point for about 90% of people. And we have a paleo reference app that is one of the top apps in iTunes, health and fitness side of things. And so it's called paleo.io. I can send you the link there. And that's actually, it's really useful. You can use it to look up about 3,000 different foods, and it's going to tell you whether it's paleo or not.
Very cool. Yeah, send me the link and we'll put it on iamadvancing.com. Hit up Joel in the search bar, show notes page with all these references, the quotes and the resources that you share with us today. Cool. Just two more. What is your favorite song? Particularly, do you have a song that you use to get pumped up maybe while you're running?
Well, sometimes you have to have a song to get pumped up to get in the shower when it's cold. So there's a song by Eminem. It's Till I Collapse, and it's a good song. It's probably the best pump up song out there. So
Name of it, but I was really into spin class for a while. I had some Eminem song that would just power me through. So I'm all about the Eminem for a little bit of pump up music. I think he has a lot of really good ones. So tell us, what is your favorite business book?
Oh, interesting. There's two good ones that I've read. There's one that's I think Felix, I forget his name, but it's called I think it's just How to Get Rich, which is Felix Dennis.
Which is
It's less cheesy than you think it would be. So it's a
good.
really good book. And then Napoleon Hill. Oh,
I don't even think that Felix Dennis book is that popular, but I gotta tell you, audience, it is one of the best business books because it broke it down that if you're not willing to put in the time and effort, stop. If you're not going to make the sacrifices, just don't do it. And it's going to take a lot of sacrifices. And this guy countered everything that he went through and all his experiences in life. And there is nothing in it that says, oh, buy a program afterwards. In fact, I've looked for him online. He's not even around. He just wrote that book because people were asking him. So one of my very, very favorite books ever. So that's cool. I don't think I've ever heard anybody else ever reference that book.
He made a lot of money, and the book is not like, you think of a book that says How to Get Rich or something like that, and you're like, that's the worst book. That's the worst title in the world. But it's actually a very, very good book, and it's less spammy than it sounds. So he's full of a lot of like the people who would normally write a How to Get Rich book are like, they would sugarcoat a lot of stuff, but he's very straightforward, which is one of the nice things that I like about the book.
I was totally addicted to that book until I finished it. I think it took me 3 or 4 days just at night reading it, and I was so into it. So very good. And I reference back to a lot of quotes and stuff. I did a lot of highlighting on that book. So very cool. Well, Joel, I just have one more question for you, and then we want our audience to know where they can find you, and then we'll say goodbye. But our last question I have for you is, if you as yourself today could give advice to that version of yourself that was just getting started in business, what would you say?
Just get started. If you haven't started now, you should start yesterday. I just get mad because I started when I was 23, which I think a lot of people think is pretty young. But I was thinking, if I would have taken 4 years I spent in college and just started a business then, I'll be 4 years ahead right now. So, it's one thing that, there's always, you can always, even if you don't always know what to do, you just try something. And especially if you have a job, the nice part about entrepreneurship in 2014 is that you can try whatever you can try so many things without risking failure or quitting your job even. And you can try all these different things. And maybe 10 of them are going to fail, but one of them will hit. And if you just keep at it, a lot of times the costs aren't so ridiculous. You don't have to get a $250,000 loan to go start your business and rent office space or whatever. You need a computer and some time to hustle, and that's it. And you could try out, you could try out a new business idea a week for 10 weeks, and in 12 weeks you could find something that has traction. That's what I like about it. So if you haven't started yet, go ahead and get started, because it's just time. It's time. Everybody you see, they've put in the work. They've made a lot of mistakes and screwed up a bunch of stuff, and the only thing that separates them from the people who quit are the people who quit. That's it.
Very good. I love it. I think that's fantastic. Joel, tell our audience the best way to connect with you.
You can go to impossiblehq.com to find out more. You can also hit me up on Twitter at Joel Runyon. And then hopefully in the show notes, we have all the links to all the different things
we're going to link to everything. We're going to link to all your stuff. You've been a wealth of information today. This has been really inspiring. And so I want to thank you for helping us advance.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Advancing Entrepreneur. If you enjoyed it, leave us a rating and review. Not only will it make our day, you'll also be helping others find this show and advance their own careers. Once you're done, be sure to head on over to iamadvancing.com and join our community to learn what it takes to be an advancing entrepreneur and surround yourself for success. Thanks again, and get ready to advance.